How's it going, everyone? Today I have the honor of talking to Michael Bailey Smith, who might not be a name you kind of hear about. For me, I'm a huge movie buff, and one of the first movies I guess I saw, this is back in 2000, I was going through an old VHS store, and I came across In Hell with Jean-Claude Van Damme because I was in this crazy kind of, I need to watch every Van Damme, every Seagal, not necessarily based on those actors, but the villains. And your character in that movie really resonated with me. And a couple weeks ago, I went back and rewatched that movie, and that character, Valia, still holds up as this menacing, brute kind of person. And then so I was like, I wonder what this guy, who is Michael Bailey Smith, the person? And I learned about your incredible military background, U.S. Army, 82nd Airborne, and growing up in parts of your life in Iran, working with a satellite company in Iran, and then you've gone to become part of this kind of pop culture kind of icon, from everything from Charmed to other TV shows to playing Super Freddy, and it's just awesome you're here today, Michael. I hope this finds you well.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and thanks for having me. It's yeah, you got a cool show, and I'm glad to be on it. Thank you.
Now, I do want to touch on, obviously 2020 was kind of a wash, obviously based on what you had for a job. And I know a lot of your entertainment side of the house was affected by it, as was mine. But what were you able to kind of find, or what were some positives you were able to pull out of 2020 that you're able to carry into the new year?
I think one of those things is you say one thing, you appreciate what you had, right? And so, when that moment comes when we can start traveling and start being able to hang out with people without having masks, I think it's really just in general with everyone, we're going to really appreciate things and appreciate people more. I think we took things way too much for granted, just the ease of the way we traveled. I mean, my current job that I have, I travel probably around 200,000, 240,000 miles a year in the world, from China to India to South America, all through the United States, Africa. And so it'll be good to get back on the road again. Those things I'm very appreciative of.
Now, have you gone back to a TV show set or a movie set recently with the COVID protocols in place? Or is that something you're kind of like, hey, we just got to do this to move on in that part of your life?
I have not, but I a producer that I'm working with now has done a ton of TV shows, and he's on Queen of the South right now. And so they definitely go through all the different protocols for that. So it's quite interesting. But, the thing is, they've been pretty safe. And so long as people adhere to it, you can get the work done. So,
which I love. And I've kind of got used to as I'm in the security field, where one of the things I did when this whole thing happened, I became a COVID compliance officer. So working with producers and production managers and stuff at different events, it's just very, very fascinating that people, I think the first 6 months, people were really torn apart that their industry is affected by it. But to see people kind of band together and adapt to what's coming, it's just awesome. And it's cool that sports are able to come back, and now movie sets are getting back together. It's just kind of cool because for me, I take the politics and the drama out of entertainment. I just love movies and television.
Yep.
And I think it's a good release for people, especially when it's done right. And you've obviously been a part of that. So growing up, you have a military Air Force family. That brings you to Iran, which I don't know. I've been to Iran a bunch of times with government stuff or work, but I don't know a lot of people that have actually lived in Iran, and I think you're the first person I've actually talked to that has.
Really interesting. Yeah. So, I grew up as an Air Force brat. My dad put in 30 years in the Air Force. He has a very cool and interesting background. He was a part of SR-71s, the Blackbirds, back in the day before they even came out. So he did a lot of interesting work at Area 51, Groom Lake, and things like that. Things that he could talk a little bit about, now to a certain extent. But at the time, when that plane flew in before he was actually released, and it was covered in black. I mean, it was just in the darkness. This plane would land in Nellis Air Force Base, and so he was a pretty cool dude. And so we traveled around the United States and never really had a hometown. And then my junior going end of my sophomore year, he got stationed in Iran, in Tehran, and his job was to build a OJT program on the job training program for the Iranian Air Force. And so we packed up and we drove to we lived in, as an Air Force brat, you live in these small towns, really no big thing. And so our first time in New York City, we got lost, trying to find JFK Airport, and we put our station wagon with a bunch of our stuff in it, not all of it, but some of our stuff on a boat to go to Iran. And then we were on a plane, and we flew from JFK to, I think it was Rome to Ankara, Turkey to Baghdad to Iran. And so it was quite interesting getting off the plane. I distinctly remember a different smell than United States. We had a dog and a cat that we brought, and that dog definitely knew the difference for sure. It would walk outside and go brr, and then run back inside. It was just crazy. But I was what was I, 15? So I'm in my prime. As a teenager, I want to meet girls, and there was none of that going on, at the time. And we lived in a little bit of a villa in a place called the road was called Chalapanj Metre. I still can speak a little Farsi. Went to a Tehran American school there. An interesting thing about all that, I spent 3 years there, and I graduated there in the Tehran American, at the U.S. Embassy. That's where we had our graduation. And after we got done, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to always play college football, and I didn't know how I was going to do that. And being the oldest of 6 kids, and being on my dad, was making E6 or E7 salary. There's no chance you're going to be they'll be affording me to go to college, right? So I had to figure out my own way. And so I got a job. I worked 9 months with a company called Westinghouse. Sorry, Westinghouse. And so it's been a while since I talked about this. Westinghouse, and we built defense radars for the Iranian Air Force. So we actually every day after I graduated, the whole summer and all the way up through the next spring, I worked into the wintertime. I worked at Westinghouse, and we would drive about a 2-hour drive up into the Azores Mountains, and on top of the mountain was this radar installation. So I built the radomes, installed the radar installation. I was a laborer is what I was, so just a grunt, and did all this stuff and made $17.50 an hour. And back in
that's awesome.
70, that's a lot of money. So I packed that away, all of it, right? And it's tax free too. So that just all went straight to my bank account. And so, yeah, but I want to always play college football, and I even saving I think I saved like $15,000 or something like that in the short period of time I was there. There's all these other stories I could tell you about how being trapped up in the mountains, we got snowed in, we had to walk down. A guy had a heart attack.
I'd love to hear that story. That sounds that sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, worked with these Westinghouse engineers. They were pretty awesome, and I'm just a kid. But they hired a bunch of guys straight out of high school, and so there was one time we were going up the mountain. It was snowing, and we're like, this is going to get bad. And then we were inside. I was laying cable and doing all that, running cable all through the installation and crawling under these ducts and things like that and pulling cable and stuff. And about lunchtime, we look outside and it's about maybe 2 or 3 feet of snow already. I'm like, we're going to have a tough time getting down. By the time it was the end of work, we couldn't get down. We were stuck. And so they said, okay, just, you guys got to spend the night. We had some extra food there. And so this one, it went from one night to an extra day after that. We were up there for over a week, and we ran out of food. We found a shepherd's hut and got rice, and it was like a whole shack thing up in the mountain somewhere that we saw. And we went back there, found like a big thing of rice, grabbed that and water, and ate boiled the snow into water, and ate rice and water We found some little flavoring imported in there. That's what we did. They tried to get a rescue team to come up, but they got stuck and it blocked the road, so no one could get up. So we were running out of food. We had nothing to do. So, I mean, we had to do something. So we decided to wrap ourselves in a plastic wrap inside our clothes because we weren't dressed for this blizzard.
Right.
And our shoes. And then me and another guy, we basically were in the lead. So we had these long poles and shoving them through the snow because the road up was on a cliffside. So if you took a wrong, you're dropping, 500 feet down a ravine, and you didn't know where the edge was at. So we're all tethered together and going down. Well, on the way down, one of the engineers who was kind of overweight and kind of out of shape had a heart attack. So he fell dead, and one of the other guy jumped on him, revived him, brought him back to life, and then we went all the rest of the way down the hill and made it. And down there was pretty funny. I'll never forget this. We get down there, and there's a rescue team down there and all this. So it's like from the movies, And what's the first thing they give me? They give me a pint of vodka and some bread. So I haven't eaten like in 2 days. I'm like, on the way home, I was having a great time. All the guys were having a great time. We were freaking wasted. And so, it's funny. I get back to my house. My mom and dad go, "Where were you?" I was gone for the mountains were freaking. No one, back in the day, you didn't have cell phones, nothing like that, right? So it's the 1970s. So that was pretty cool.
Now,
sir.
With your dad in the Air Force, you ultimately chose to do the Army. Was there a reason why you picked Army as opposed to doing like the family thing and doing Air Force? Yeah.
So this is a crazy story too. My whole life's like crazy stories. I'm surprised I'm still here. So I wanted to play college football. Well, that was my goal. I've always wanted to do that. And I'm 6'4". At the time, I weighed about 165 pounds. I could take my hand and reach around.
That seems really skinny.
It is very skinny. It is. I mean, you could see my heart beat through my ribs. That's how skinny I was. It was pretty bad. And so I asked my dad. I said, he goes, "Well, you know what? The military has a GI Bill. Why don't you think about joining the military? And then you can get that and then go to college. And if you want to go play football." I said, "That's a good idea." So, there's no internet, nothing like that. So he just threw me on a plane. That was a Mac flight, right? These military have these Mac flights where you jump on a Mac flight. So I had a Mac flight from Tehran, Iran to Frankfurt, Germany. So I went to the recruiter there. So someone picked me up, but to get there, I remember getting there. My dad gave me 3 $100 bills and put them in my wallet. And I remember I had to find a place to stay, and they just sent me there. Yeah. Nowadays, you would never do that. I mean, I could never send my kids to just go to Frankfurt, Germany and figure it out yourself. And so they said, "There's a recruiter." So I put me on a plane. I went up to Frankfurt, and I got a taxi or I got something. I remember being in Frankfurt, and I couldn't find a place to stay. And then someone told me Bahnhof, it was like train station, but to go to this one Bahnhof Mission. And you can spend the night there. And so that's what I did. I went to this place. I got a room. I paid the guy some money. And so I put the 3 $100 bills in my sock, in my shoe, and I slept on a cot with like 20 or 30 other people in this room, other guys, right? And I woke up in the morning and that money was gone.
Jeez.
And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" So I lost it. I'm this crazy,
right?
Skinny white dude going crazy in this Bahnhof Mission. And I said, "If you don't find this, find this money, whatever like this." So lo and behold, about 20 minutes later, "Oh, I have your money. We found it. So someone found it. So that was kind of interesting. But I met my first kind of cool German young gal lady. She was kind of cool. She showed me around. I was kind of infatuated with her. And then I got to the recruiter station, and I chose the Army. I wanted to be a Ranger is what I wanted to be. But when I told them, they said, "Yeah, you're not going to make it. Not at 6'4", 160 pounds, you're not going to make it." So they said, "But you could be a paratrooper." And I said, "All right." I said, in the 82nd Airborne, I said, "All right, cool. Sign me up." My goal was to do that, then go to be a Ranger, right? Work my way up, And so then I signed up for 11 Bravo, the whole situation, ready to do gung ho, the whole situation. So I get back to Iran, my dad goes, what MOS did you sign up for? I said, 11 Bravo. He goes, hell no. And so he called him, and he called him and says, you get him out of that MOS and get my son another MOS. And so I became a 24 Mike, which was, it was a Vulcan electronics repairman. And so I went in the military. So after I finished my time in Iran, I left by myself. I went back and I was on deferred entry.
Yep.
And went in. My basic training was at Fort Bliss, Texas. And went there. I went through 24. I went to basic training and then 24 Mike school. So I became a Vulcan repairman. So if you graduate top of your class, or at least 10%, you get to go to an advanced course called It's called the Forward Aerial Alert Radar.
Okay.
And so went in that, and that was it was a self-paced course. It was supposed to last like 3 months. I did it in 17 days. Wow. So, and I got promoted out of it. I went from E1 to E2 or E2 to E3. I forgot what it was. And then I got assigned. So I finished so fast, I went to the 82nd without going to jump school. And you talk about getting the world to hurt coming my way. A Maroon Beret with no jump wings, no flash, no nothing. And I still, hold it. So I have my Maroon Beret still.
Love that.
Flash. So yeah, so I got this. So I was in the 3rd of the 4th ADA, Air Defense Artillery, and so I headed up. So I went to, and then I went to jump school while I was in, and did that and got out, and then I did 3 years, and so but my goal was to get out and to play. My goal was to get out and play college football, but I excelled really well in the military, and I always prided myself that anything I do, I want to make sure I finish strong and try to do the best I can and be at the top, and never, there's a lot of guys that join the military, just do enough to get by, and like my older son is like that. My older son just finished 4 years as an Army Ranger in the 75th Ranger Regiment. So, he was in 1st Battalion. He did excellent. And I told him, I said, this is what's going to happen. So most people, you see a lot of people in the military are going to get in there and just do enough to get by and whatever. I said, don't be like that. You're going to get opportunities. This is in life as well, where opportunities can present itself. And either two types of people. One, they're going to sit back and watch someone else step up and make it happen, or them take it, or you step up and you make it happen. And that's what happened. When he was in basic in Fort Jackson, the drill sergeants, how they'll put you in charge of a platoon, and next thing you know, you're fired 30 minutes later. He was put in charge. He stepped up, took over, and was the leader the whole way through. And he never was fired, nothing. He graduated top of his class in that. He was a forward observer, 13 Fox, so he's top of his class in that. He went to RASP, and he was one of the top guys in that class. And then he went to Ranger School as well, and he did that. So top of his class, he went straight through. So no recycle, no nothing. So he killed it. But for me, I wanted to get out and play college football, and that's what I did. And the interesting thing is, so when I was in 1979, the Delta just started, and Colonel Beckwith was going around, basically, quote, tryouts, for that. And they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I told them no, because I wanted to get out and play. I had no idea. I thought it was something else more that I had to do. And I didn't know it was like this big, Delta was something that's pretty darn special. So there was a guy in my squad, a squad leader. There was a guy in my squad that was, he went through the program. He got into Delta, and he was on the rescue mission that failed, in the desert of Iran. And so when that whole thing went down, I'll never forget, we were having formation, and a black C-130 AC gunship flies. We were in Old Division right by Green Ramp in Fort Bragg. And an AC-130 flies right over the top of our barracks. Like, oh man, we're going. And next thing you know, we were down on Green Ramp. I had everything packed up, ready to rock and roll, and waiting for the word, sitting on a 141. We never got it. But my superintendent of my high school was one of the 50 American hostages.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool. I was thinking, man, there's probably a chance I might go back and get to shoot my neighbor. It'd be kind of cool. Just I'm teasing. you know what I mean, though. So
right. No,
it's
that's
crazy.
and so you actually get to try it with the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. So I walked on at Eastern. So I had a chance to go to Notre Dame. I know, believe it or not, a chaplain in my unit played at Kansas State, and so he heard that I wanted to play college football, and so he made some calls for me and called up Notre Dame to say, I got this kid who's really fast, good kid, 6'4" at the time. And then when I went and weighed 160, I got out, I weighed 240. So I lived
on the muscle now.
I was ripped, and I lived in the gym as much as I could. I remember out like we're like in some country, whatever, and I'm doing push-ups behind a freaking, gamma goat back in the day. Now they have Humvees, but back in the day it's gamma goats, and doing push-ups. And they used to call me the muscle head because I was always trying to work out everywhere I could get. My foxhole, I'm doing handstand push-ups, I'm doing everything I can, and so so I had a chance to go to Notre Dame, and then he called me and says, you know what, if you go to Notre Dame, you're probably gonna sit on the bench for a while. Where are you from? I said, well, I was born in Michigan. And he says, okay, let me look up them. He said, well, Michigan and Michigan State are two biggest schools. How about something like Eastern Michigan? They need help. And I ended up going there. They called him, and so I walked on, and then I started 4 years. I went from being a center to a guard to offensive tackle, and then I was preseason All-American, Sporting News All-American, all these things like that. And then I hurt my knee my senior year. Supposed to get drafted, didn't, but I went as a free agent to the Dallas Cowboys. And so I was there in camp. I was 6'4", 295 pounds.
So you gained another 40 in the course. Jeez, man.
Yeah, and I was ripped. I had about 9% body fat, and I ran a 40 and 4.8. So, and even today's standards, that's pretty darn fast. And so for being a big white dude, that's really fast. And so when I showed up and ran that, they're like, what? So they couldn't believe it, And so I was there in camp, and I have a interesting story about Randy White. One of my first days in camp, he and I got in a fight, which is kind of interesting. He clubbed me, and then the next play, I gave him a shot to the neck, and he didn't like that too well. And we were throwing punches, and then later on that day, I tweaked my knee a little bit, my bad knee, and then it just blew up like really big. And then they looked at it, and then next morning I had a call to go see the head coach. And so Tom Landry was in his office and said, Michael, we love you. We think you could have, been with us for a while, but your knee's not going to make it. And so that's what it was. So I ended up going back to Eastern Michigan crying, but I was pretty just devastated, kind of floated around a little bit, and then finally finished my degree in computer aided design. It's an offshoot from computer science. And then kind of fell in love with some kind of crazy chick, and we went to California together, and she dumped me after about a month in San Diego. And I befriended this dude who was he would go up to Universal Studios and play Conan the Barbarian. So we trained at Gold's Gym together.
Nice.
Yeah. So he was a big dude, and he said, hey, I'm going up to Hollywood to go read for this movie called Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. And why don't you come with me, and maybe you could audition too. And so I went up there and sat in the foyer, and they asked me if I wanted to audition. I said, yeah. And I went in, and I ended up getting a role.
Now, you had no ambition to really be an actor, right?
No, not at the beginning, no. And then I got the role of playing Super Freddy, a bigger version of Freddy Krueger. And I spent like 3 weeks on the movie. I said, this is what I want to do. And so then I just started, I found a way to get up to Hollywood, and lived in some creepy dude's apartment on the floor in the back room. Lived in my car a little bit too. And and I just kind of made my way. I just kind of said, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. It's what I've always done, right? Either in the military or in playing football. And I treat it the same way. And so every cent that I made, because I got a job working at a test laboratory, putting my degree to work instead of waiting tables. And every cent that I made, I put it towards acting classes, and just started becoming more proficient as an actor, becoming comfortable with auditions and knowing the process and how to create characters and sustain characters. And understanding what a character is, in a script and things like that. So after Nightmare on Elm Street, I went through a lull of just kind of figuring out what to do. And then I got hired to do a movie called CIA Codename Alexa.
Wow.
With O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, perfect.
O.J. Simpson, Lorenzo Lamas, and then a gal named Kathleen Kemont. And they just hired me to just be a fighter against Lorenzo Lamas. And so, but then they found out that I could
Right, you're a proper
decent actor. I went from being nothing to being a fourth lead in the film, and single car billing and all situation. So I just kind of built from there. And I did everything I could. Trust me, I did everything I could to make my way. I would hop in my car in the mornings and deliver submissions to all the different casting directors throughout the Hollywood. I did everything possible. I did grunt work. I did everything. I didn't do too much extra work. I did one extra job on a TV show called First and 10. Remember that way back in the day? I played a football player. I did some commercial. I did tons of commercials, print work, and so I did everything I could, man, to make my way. And then it just, a couple things that were my favorite. One, a lot of other big guys, started kind of the same time I did in the early '90s, and what they would do is they would just not study. They would just think because they're a big guy and kind of a good-looking guy, muscular, they'd make their way. But me, maybe I had some of those things, but what I had was that I knew how to handle myself as an actor, and that helped a lot. So I walked in, I crushed it every time. And so most people would book like maybe one job out of 50 or 60 or 80 or 100 auditions. I booked probably out of 10 auditions, I would book 5, which is really high in percentage. And I just started working a lot. And that's
now one of the interesting things, though. Right now we're in the explosion of comic books and Marvel and DC.
Yep.
There's this incredible lore, and I wish I could have seen it or whatever. But the Roger Corman's the Fantastic Four. You played Ben Grimm, the Thing, the big orange rock guy, and How is it weird for you to actually be maybe the first one, maybe outside the original Captain America, where this, like, before it even blew up, people realized the comic books could be a huge property? And like, how does that even, how come that movie, why is there so much craziness surrounding that movie?
Wow. Okay. I'll show you something else. So here's a, you can see this.
Oh, yeah, yep, I see it.
Yeah. So this is a documentary on the Fantastic Four and what happened to it.
Awesome.
And it's basically, unbeknownst to the cast, this movie was made to hold the rights to the film. Because Bernard Eichlinger, who had the rights at the time, a producer, he was going to lose the rights in January 1st, 1994. He was going to lose the rights if he didn't have something in production. So at the time, I was doing another TV show. I was doing another Lorenzo Lamas film. I was doing Renegade, the TV show Renegade with Lorenzo Lamas. And and so I was going to say is that so that, I went up like between filming and went up and auditioned for this Fantastic Four thing. And it was very strange. It was like in December, beginning of December. And most of the times in December, we start shutting stuff down because of Christmas, right? But this is like auditioning. And they said, okay, now we're going to call you back in a couple of days. So I got called back and I read again. And next thing I got it, and they said, okay, we're going to start production on like December 26th or 7th, right? I'm like, no one ever does that. That was kind of strange. And then so we started production, and then Bernard Eichlinger supposedly just wanted to start production, but we ended up not only starting production, but finishing the darn thing, at least shooting all principal photography. And then all the resources went away. Then Ole Sassoon, who's the director, he went and took those cuts and doing a clandestine operation, kind of did some secret editing and added music, got an orchestra and put this thing together in a really grassroots kind of way. And it just turned into this film. So me and the guy who played Reed Richards, Alex Hyde White, we got together and we said, let's promote this film. So I spent about maybe $12,000 of my own money. Wow. Hired a publicist because someone told me that once you get your first break, you should try to put all that money back into that opportunity, and then hopefully make it grow.
Right.
And that's kind of what I did. So I paid for the publicist, and we traveled around the country to film comic book conventions and stores, and did everything. I remember one time we were flying back from Florida, I think it was, he and I, after the convention. And this is back in the day when you had VHS on the airplane. So I had the trailer of the Fantastic Four on VHS. So I asked the flight attendant, could you play this on and she did. She played it on the plane. It was awesome. So, but then I think it was in December that within that year, after a year of promoting it, we got a cease and desist order from Bernard Eichlinger that he just sold the rights to 20th Century Fox. And so then we just kind of died. But you know what? Looking back at all that and everything that happened, it's crazy to say, but it was almost a blessing that this happened. Because if it had finished, it had been released, it would have came out and it would have been like the Captain America or some of those other kind of low rent,
Spider-Man had
lower budget films. And so it would have been the same thing, right? They tried, but no budget. So this one, because it was shelved, everyone wanted to see it, right? And it was probably, out of all the Fantastic Four movies out there, and I've only seen bits and pieces. I've never sat down and watched the other ones. I feel like it'd be like I was cheating on my wife or my girlfriend.
Right. Like, this is my baby over here.
Yeah, this is my baby. I'm not going to watch anybody else's. So ours was the most true to the comic books.
Yeah,
there's a lot of FX.
I know they're talking of obviously bringing the new movie back and
of course
and stuff, but it'd be kind of cool to have you involved as like a throwback or like almost like a passing the torch. Like, you were the first guy to play this character, but also part of a Marvel movie. Agreed.
So I was Ben Grimm, right? I played the human form with the hair, and I was handsome back in the day. But then because of the low budget, and they didn't know who I was, what kind of background I had, they hired a stunt guy, Carl Cefalio, who is like Hollywood royalty when it comes to stunts and things like that. And plus, he's been in tons of movies.
Right.
Casino, Far and Away. He's been just everything. He's a phenomenal actor, super nice guy. And so they hired him to be the guy in the suit, but I did the voice for him. So I did all the voiceover stuff for him. And so that's kind of, also too, they couldn't probably bring me back because I had hair back then. I don't have hair now. And
right.
So yeah.
Now you've mentioned it before, but your size, I mean, you're obviously much bigger than the average human. And so I assume you get typecast into certain characters, whether you have to play the menacing bad guy or the hulking hero, right? Like, you can't really be. We're not talking like Benjamin Button here, where they can make you smaller and CGI.
Agreed.
So it's like, how do you find? Do you find there's a lot of roles out there that you could do, but because you are physically imposing, you can't play that character?
Agreed, but it's okay. You're working, and what happens? Work gets work, and you get to do interesting things and interesting characters. Like, for instance, here's a great story. So my attitude when I used to audition, when I'd audition, is getting the part or not. I'm planting a seed. I'm planting a seed with hopefully the director you're reading in front of, the casting director, and possibly the producers, right? So all those people. You're planting a seed. So you're going to get it. They might, and if you do a great enough job and they like your look, they might find something else for you and give you the role on something else. Well, I did a pilot for Amazon. And it was called Cocked. It was about two gun manufacturers that were competing to release this kind of new gun or weapon.
Gotcha.
And so I was playing the bad guy for this. Like the henchman that goes around causing all this trouble. How I got this role was quite interesting. The light on my TV just fell off. But anyway, so how I got this was about 2 years before that. I read for a Burger King commercial, and the director for that the director for that, I didn't get the role because the Burger King people didn't like my look or whatever, right? I don't know. But he remembered me. And so then I still had to audition, but he specifically wanted me for this role. So I had to audition with the whole situation. So I remember when I showed up at the set, now the production assistant said, "Hey, Michael, the director wants to see you on the set." So I went to the set, and it was like in the downtown Los Angeles, and it was like the 15th floor of this big building, and went up to the 15th floor, and they were shooting up there, and then I was waiting for him to finish the shot. And he comes over and goes, "Hey, Michael, welcome." I said, "Thank you." I said, "Do you know why I hired you?" And I said, "Well, hopefully because I was right for the role." And he says, "Well, but you read for me about 2 years ago for a Burger King commercial, and I remembered you." Awesome. So that leads into, planting seeds and always doing that. So whenever I'm auditioning and things like that, I always want to make sure I do the best job ever, right? And just make sure that people remember me. And that just leads into work and more work. And if I do a good job playing a bad guy or playing a tough guy, whatever it is, it'll get more work, right? And as long as I'm working and as long as I'm providing for my family, that's good. And it allows for a lot of creativity, because a lot of times, because of the reputation that I have and things like that, the director, they want you to bring your flavor of this person to make it interesting. I remember one time reading for a movie was called Monster Man.
Classic.
Yeah, have you ever seen it? It's freaking awesome. So I played a great character named Fuckface, and it's a great character name. And I drive a monster truck, which is freaking awesome. I run over people, and I had this kind of jacked up walk and the way I talked and all these things like that. I remember going into the audition, and the director, actually, when I finished, he walked over and hugged me. He hugged me. And he says, "Dude, you're perfect. I don't need to see anybody else." That's like the best audition ever, right? So that happened. So
now, the first time I really saw, we talked about In Hell and stuff like that, but the remake of Hills Have Eyes with Pluto, and obviously the sequel, you played Papa Hades, but that was such a visceral character. And that one scene in the trailer where you attack the family and stuff, it's just like, when you do a role like that, how hard is it to get into that character? Like that scene I'm talking about, where it's like, I think it's the assault on the woman, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, how do you play this evil character, but how do you have to? It's got to be a weird scene to kind of like get in character, right?
It is. The first thing I always do to make sure that whoever I'm going to act across, that they feel safe with me. That's really important. When I'm going to be physical with somebody or whatever it is, toss them around. I think once in my whole career that I've actually grazed, like getting in fights, I've actually grazed somebody, just grazed them a little bit on their nose once. I remember when that was, but I've been punched many a time. Urkel, full on, bam, just punched me right across the face, in a, Urkel from Family Matters, right? So I fought him. I know that's crazy. But Van Damme beat the crap out of me. Lorenzo Lamas hit me a couple times. I've been punched by everybody. Chicks have punched me, accidentally, of course, but everybody's been accident except for maybe Van Damme. He had a couple times he might have put it on a little too thick for me, but
is that just to sell the fight? For In Hell, like, again, your character is so imposing, like he's a bad guy, but you carry that depth to him where he's like, you might actually sympathize why he acts this way. So in that final scene with Van Damme, like the rehearsal for that, how do they film that? Do you have an idea of how the fight's going to go? And when Van Damme kind of gets into it, starts hitting you, is that because it's a respect thing to you? Like, hey, this is a guy that can take this.
Everybody, some of these guys that you work with, some people are known to, I try to be safe, but they also are known to.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, that lay it on a little too much, right?
Right.
I must say for Van Damme, I respect his work ethic. He works really hard, which is good. But he invited me to his hotel, and like in the lobby area, we found a quiet spot and we kind of rehearsed things, just he and I, and some of his ideas. And then on the set, we actually, we rehearsed a lot over and over and over and over again to make it look as real and fluid as possible.
Right.
Because people are going to get hurt. Interesting note about that that movie. I never played another character in that film, and no one knows about.
Were you the big guy that's kind of the cell?
In the mask? Yeah, that's me. They had hired. So the AD on that movie, I forgot the guy's name. He's like 6'8", huge guy, probably like 350-pound dude. And so they just said, "Hey, you could play this character." So they threw a mask on him at the opening scene of the movie, and he started and broke his ankle. Couldn't finish it. So they were freaking out. So how can we find someone big? And then someone goes, "Well, why don't we just build these shoes that have like 4-inch heels, all the way across a platform, and give them to Michael, and he could play that role too." And then, you know who David Leitch is?
Yeah.
David Leitch, well-known, Deadpool, John Wick, producer, director. Well, he was a stunt coordinator on that film, and I got to know him pretty well. He threatened to quit. Ringo Lam was the director. He threatened to quit. Says, "You're putting Michael in a dangerous position because there's only one Michael to finish playing Valia. So if you break him,
right,
you can do it." And I told Dave, I said, "Listen, I can do this. I'm an athlete, right? I played football. I did all these other things. I jumped out planes for a living. I could do all these things. It's okay." And he quit, but then he came back. But he quit like for the day. So I'm not be a part of this. And he walked away.
Right. It's kind of cool though. He looked out for you though.
Yeah, no, I respect that quite a bit. And so I put on these heels and I put the mask on, and it was great. So I played that role too. That was kind of interesting. So
now that leads into you joined when you part of the show Charmed, which I've never watched it. I'm familiar with the characters, obviously your roles, because they're just the makeup and the prosthetics are amazing. But you actually played more than one character on that show as well. So
yeah, I played 4.
Did they bring you on there for that same reason, where you know the cast, you know how it's filmed, you know the story, just play this character and assume that the viewer has how do you play it off with the viewer? You're anticipating the viewer not to realize this is the same guy that's playing this character.
Yeah, so that's
they're all different though. So it helps.
Yeah, agreed. So your responsibility as an actor is, and even like you go from role to role, or unless you're a movie star like Schwarzenegger, he basically plays the same role the whole way through, right?
Just change the location.
Yeah, because people want to see him just as Schwarzenegger or whoever, right? Doesn't matter. But then you get people that are character actors, and I'm more of that type of actor, right? And so for Charmed, there's an episode. It's called All Hallows Eve. It was a Halloween episode, and I played this Grimlock called Janor, me and this other guy. And so that's the first role I got. I was a guest star role on it. I was playing this character, and I was, when you got roles, there's some roles that just fit you like a glove, like you're just perfect for it. You can't do anything wrong, period. Right. I can sleep, and I can do some of my sleep. It just comes, it's great. Everybody loves what you're doing, and I think it's perfect. This is one of those roles like that. It was very stoic and just very measured, and I like those kind of roles sometimes. And so throughout the filming of that, producers come up to me and say, "Michael, you're doing a really great job." And I get that, you get that all the time, but then you kind of blow it off because you don't want that stuff to go to your head. You just want to focus on your role and finishing strong. So on the last day, I was in my trailer and I got a call from my agent, my manager, and she goes, "Hey, they want you back." And I said, "Oh, cool." I said, "Good. I like this character." She goes, "No, not that character." She goes, "As a character named Balthazar. I hired some other guy and he wasn't working out, and they want to replace him with you." I'm like, "Great." So so this character Balthazar was the alter ego to Cole, which is played by Julian McMahon, like the heartthrob, really good-looking guy, right? So I played his alter ego. It's a little bit like it was a flip of me and Carl Cefalio from the Fantastic Four. I played the human form, and he played the guy in the suit. It's kind of like the same thing. Now, and like Carl, who did with me, we worked together to make sure that his movements and my moves were good, were matching. The same thing on Charmed. I made sure that my movements matched his movements. As towards what he would do, I made sure I did. And then I added my own flavor because I'm a different character. So I did that, and then that turned into a recurring character, and I got really good at doing that. They said, "Well, how about you play this other character named Shax?" So who was like this dude with long hair. And so how do I separate movements and the way I act that compared to Balthazar. So Balthazar, his voice is very low and like, you know, no one crosses me, you know, that kind of voice, right? You know, very, you know, I'm gonna rip your heart out and, you know, I'm gonna eat it and
yeah,
turn your head off, all that stuff. And Shaq's is more the end, you know, very like I draw the comparison to like the lead singer for the Doors. What's his name?
Jim Morrison.
Yeah, Jim Morrison. The end, you know, kind of like this.
Yeah.
And so it's a mixture of that and Tai Chi. So a lot of movements with my hands and things like that because he's part of the Wind and Tornadoes. And then I played. I also played The Source. So you can't see my face, but the voice and things like that is like through me. And then even like the Janor, I came back with another Grimlock. But every character I played, even like The Hills Have Eyes, you know, and how that character is this big innocent guy. You could have taken Pluto from the Hills of Eyes remake that I did.
Yep.
Put him in a nice family, like without all the environmental stuff and who he grew up with. Take that same character 100%. And put him in like he would have grown up as a nice person.
Yep. But
he's with these people that eat people, so he eats people too, right? And he kills people, and there's no remorse to that. You know, and a lot of people get. I draw that analogy a lot of times to people that are, you know, like mass murderers or whatever. They're kind of psychopaths, right? They're the ones that, to them, killing somebody that's just part of my job. And that's the secret of playing bad guys, is that you don't think that you're doing bad. You're doing your job. You're on a mission, right? You have something to complete, and you have to believe that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And that's what makes your character feel real. And that's the important thing.
Love that. Yeah, I'll have to. I assume when you do those conventions for Charm specific, the fan base is very loyal and dedicated to that show.
Oh, I agree completely. I was going to say I did a meet and greet and autograph signing in London, and it flew me there. The line to meet me was down the street and around the corner. And I was like, wow, it's just crazy. I spent all day from 8 a.m. to like 5 or 6 signing autograph after autograph. It was just crazy.
Now, before I let you go, the question that kind of came to my head is, when you're doing your other job, do people that don't know you or like know you, but when they recognize you, like, hey, are you that guy from this or that? Does it get hard?
Yeah. So right now I work. So I stepped away from acting. I say I stepped away. I didn't retire. I stepped away from acting in 2015. And I've done a couple of movies since then. And I still get calls from movies. And if it fits right, then I'll go and do something. And I do a lot of writing. I have a tremendous amount of writing. So I've written a screenplay called My Good Boy. I like movies that are like Shawshank Redemption and things like that. Kind of let that kind of feel. And so that one just got optioned, and it's supposed to go into production at the end of this year, beginning of next year. I want to be a producer on it as well.
Awesome.
I'm not going to act in it because it's kind of semi-autobiographical to a certain extent. And so it's about basically, I'll tell you a bit about it. You know, you always hear these sports stories about great these athletes who overcome all these odds, become successful, or win a championship like this. You never hear about the story about the guy who, like me, who blew his knee out. He had everything right there sitting in the palm of his hands. His dream of playing for the Dallas Cowboys was right there. And an instant, it was gone. No, nothing. No thank you. No handshake. Right. Kick in the pants. It just, bye. Put on a plane, go back to Eastern, figure it out yourself. And you're done. Your whole career is done. You went from being an athlete all the time to being nothing. Right. So how do you deal with that? And so for me, it led me down a dark path to a certain extent. And it was my way of, and it's a story of how to get out, how I got out of that. And so, I mean, I had the point at one time where I had people that wanted to basically hurt me. Right. I put that in a nice way.
Yeah.
And so, and it was, you know, so it's that story. And so it's a bit different, bit of a unique story, but you know, I do a lot of writing. And then I'm also the senior director of business development for this company, which is an international company that's a manufacturer for products from around the world. And so I travel around the world, and I'll go in a meeting room with all these executives, and I go, "Hey, we've met before." Probably not, but I've met in your living room. Yeah. I go, what? And then it's a great talking point. And then I talk about being an actor. I always use three names: Michael Bailey Smith, even as in what I do now, instead of just like Mike Smith or Michael Smith. There's too many of those people, so I use Michael Bailey Smith, and it kind of separates me, and it gets people to kind of want to Google my name, and then they come up and think, "Holy crap!" And then, "Is this you?" And I always get that all the time. So I use it to my advantage for sure.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for this. It was great to hear from you and talk about your life. And we'll have to do this again soon. And,
yes.
So you have a website, but you're also on Twitter. Is there any other place people that would be listening could find you if they want to follow kind of what you do? Like
Facebook as well. You know, but I'm not a big Twitter person. So yeah, I have 2 boys, and I've been helping them. They're going to be playing college football, which is awesome.
That's
so
great.
I'm very, very excited about that. Yeah, so that's why I would only use Twitter for that. So
awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Michael Bailey Smith, for this.
Thank you,
and we will talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.